So I guess Nick, you got the first one. You want to take it away?
So, yeah. So right now, just a little bit of background. The Workspaces initiative is still a couple years off, but I think a lot of people have been asking to sort of see a rough visualization of potentially how some of these concepts within Workspace will work. And so I just wanted to sort of lay out one of these concepts, which is switching between different workspaces. So as I say, this is 1 or 2 years out, but I just want to dive into a quick prototype. And what I'm interested with this in particular is how I may be able to potentially improve the way that I communicate these concepts to other people, since it seems that some of the ways that I'm communicating this stuff currently isn't necessarily sticking. So if you don't understand anything, that's a good thing. Bring it up, tell me, and I'll try and fix it. So
let me jump in real quick because I want to know what's some of the confusion people are having, because I kind of started with you working with Workspaces, so I think maybe I have a bias, or I have like a head of the curve, so to speak.
I mean, it's just an abstract thing. Basically, the difference between workspaces and namespaces, all these, just a lot of it, I think, is to do with terminology, information architecture, how things fit within within each other. So I don't want to go into too much more depth because that potentially may bias like the way that you interpret the stuff. So maybe we can discuss that after I just sort of give you a quick pitch.
Yep, perfect.
Cool. So where should I start? Oh, cross namespace navigation. That's the wrong one. My bad. I shared the wrong link. But I will just show you the prototype to start out with. So imagine I am a contractor working for a company called OtherCo. And OtherCo provides services to teams like GitLab. And whilst providing services to teams like GitLab, they may need access to GitLab's source code or database, basically the content that GitLab has. So I have been invited as a contractor from OtherCo, and I've been invited to GitLab to see currently what's going on within GitLab's workspace. GitLab's workspace currently basically equates to what is equivalent to what GitLab org is today. So the sort of all-encompassing sum of content that GitLab is working with, and that spans across the entire DevOps lifecycle. And what as this contractor, I can switch between different workspaces. You may have seen a similar sort of pattern to this with regards to Slack or with regards to Google, where there's a different workspace for each organization that you're a part of, and you can switch between those relatively seamlessly. So in this case, I am currently I'm in GitLab's workspace. I can then go back to OtherCo, which is my team's workspace, and click on that, and that'll change. And then I can also look through all the open source projects that are also in GitLab. So I could potentially jump into public. And from there, there's also the potential for me as a user to have my own personal namespace, a user namespace, and I could potentially jump into that too. So I'm by switching between these workspaces, I'm switching between different scopes of organizations that I belong to. And I can also potentially just aggregate all those things together. I don't know whether this would be performant enough, but there's the potential to basically say, here is all the content that I have access to. Let me look through that. So I'm going to pause there and see if anyone's got any questions, comments, concerns.
I do like the little Venn diagram bubbling that you've made. I think that's really helpful.
Cool. Let me just drop in the actual issue first. So you guys are looking at the same stuff that I would like you to. I'm just changing this link. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So the Venn diagrams. I suppose let me get those up again for you, Dan. And does that? I mean, so right now we can see that there's different types of workspaces. There's different types of like user namespaces as well, and there's an overlap between what is public, as in if a project or a group is set to public, and what is not, and that's sort of shared in the public domain here, and that sort of swaps between everything as well. So does this differentiation between public and sort of organization workspace make sense?
I would say for
It
me,
makes sense. Go ahead, Dan.
no, I was gonna say for me, yes, but again, like I said, I'm already I started with the project, so I'm better versed on it.
Yeah, obviously, I too also have a bit of a bias, but what my comment was in particular is it not only makes sense, but two things. I know that this is just for us, the reviewers, but the Venn diagram really helps to really visualize what's actually going on here. I also wonder up in the top left where the menu actually drops down, if that can actually also, the way that that's visually set up, which is, public namespace, is that could be a educational opportunity as well. So it sort of lends itself to saying that almost like a breadcrumb, right? And you're using that first part as a variable to change that breadcrumb. I wonder if that was intentional, and if not, could we make that intentional?
Yeah, so I think some of the challenges that GitLab has from that having nested namespaces within each other. So I think making the breadcrumb potentially a little bit more prominent within our UI is probably a good idea. And I've been looking at some competitors, and Azure DevOps actually does this quite nicely. As we can see sort of right here, that's a workspace, that's a project. These are like the features as well. So I actually quite like that quite a bit, because it sort of conveys where you are a lot more easily. We have a breadcrumb currently, but I think we could probably beef up that functionality and make it slightly more prominent as a navigation tool.
It's almost like you could, sorry, Daniel, I interrupted you again. It's almost like you could make the breadcrumbs, instead of clicking on it to go to where that parent is in the breadcrumb, you could almost make it a drop down so that you could sort of create variables in the subs. I know it would get maybe difficult, especially if you're very nested in the breadcrumb, but at the top level, it could almost make sense as well.
I do also think that the top placement where you have it really helps with the current navigation, because we have that your groups or your projects at the top in that area anyways, which is kind of bulky and cumbersome and not really well executed. And I think this kind of can help that by reducing some of that clutter or confusion, but probably obviously have to validate it.
Yeah, and there's some more work that needs to be done with this, like on how it would actually function with the namespaces that live within this particular workspace. But yeah, that's basically where I am today. A little bit of the thinking. Any other sort of feedback on potentially the pitch and how that could be refined?
You called out sort of a time span, I think is super important as given the context that I have with this. I think that there are some people that don't understand the how long of a timeline of change this is, and what is the work that you're doing now fall in that plan. I know you're kind of getting pulled in a couple of directions. Obviously, people who are asking for like phase 1, phase 2 work are like those who expect to be more affected by these changes more in a timely manner versus that sort of long-term vision thing. So I love the reiteration of the time. I think there are members of the audience of Workspaces that when you mentioned about 2 years, that would blow their mind. They had no idea that that was like, we're actually talking about long-term changes here. So I think just the reiteration of that timeline, not just in the long term, but also the short term, I think is going to be really useful for others.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of reiterate, I think a lot of people think that the workspace team is basically working on the navigation, but really we have like 4 big initiatives. Like one is merging together projects and groups. One is taking features from the admin panel that exist in the instance level and moving those down to SaaS customers. One is refining the settings and how we cascade settings down from workspace to nested namespaces. And then the final one is this workspace type thing, which is a lot further out. So the number one priority for me and the rest of the workspace team at the moment is merging together projects and groups. So that is a little bit lower level with regards to this, but it's it's sort of occupying my headspace at the moment.
Is the merging of groups and projects kind of the MVC to where nothing will change? It'll mostly be on the back end?
Correct. Yeah. So the first, so we're the engineering team is sort of chopping this up into a number of phases. Right now, most of the changes are happening on the back end, and you won't be able to notice anything that's happening. And then they'll get to a point where we start to try and merge together the functionality of projects and groups. And what we'll try and do is try and keep it consistent as possible, but there is inconsistency between projects and groups that we need to figure out. So that will have to be done on a feature by feature basis. And that's something that I can support with, but each team will also need to sort of contribute to that because it's basically looking at the entire product of GitLab. So what I'm trying to do is create a framework so other people can think through these problems themselves.
I think just to go back to your original question is how might you improve the way to communicate these concepts? I think you're on the right path. The only other thing maybe would be like, as an example, Austin did those open office sessions for his compliance group. If you have opportunity or time to do like 5-minute blurbs, like once a week on what you're doing, what's going on, the direction, and just throw that into the Slack channels, that might help, just at least in terms of showing visibility. And until somebody sees something that says, hey, this speaks to me, I have a question, you know, then they might get back in touch. Not so much looking specifically for feedback, but just say, here's an FYI or a status update, and let them come to you with questions and concerns.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's what I'm trying to do with these sessions as well, is just feed 2 birds with 1 scone, and get some feedback from all you, and then also push this pitch out to everyone else so they can provide feedback as well.
I think that's a great idea too. In particular, and maybe we can actually talk to Austin about how much of a time obligation those weekly office hours are for him. I wouldn't want to overload Nick, but I think that one of the things that those office hours I think would also introduce, whether it be weekly or whatever, is a little bit of that product manager issue that we were talking about earlier, Nick, which is like, where are the gaps from the product manager answering questions? Gives you the opportunity to just sort of not only help answer those questions, but identify where those gaps are, and then create a place for kind of back and forth feedback.
I think also one thing to add, not so much solicit information or feedback from the UX team, but using these little blurbs or walkthroughs or office hours or whatever you want to do with it, to the product group or the product channel, to the wider organization, you might get more varied feedback, probably more targeted in terms of like, oh my God, what is this going to do to my customer XYZ? And you'll probably get some really good feedback that way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I think Blair's got the next item.
I do. Just a quick one. You will see yet another new face in these meetings. Sasha Eggenberger is here. Finally, today is his first day. I thought we would do just a little round robin, so come off mute and whoever wants to sort of introduce themselves and tell them what you do here and how long you've been here and any other icebreaker questions that you'd like, feel free. Why don't we start with Sasha, actually?
Sure, dude. I can. So yeah, my name's Sasha. I joined today, this morning. So like, already created my first merge request, and yeah, I'm fully into the onboarding issue, walking through. I'm 34. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. And yeah, I'm about to becoming a dad in April. So I'm really looking forward for that as well. And of course, the start at GitLab. I was so excited, and now finally the day is here. And yeah, I'm also, I'm a designer for quite a long time. I worked in different Swiss agencies, some well-known Swiss agencies for over a decade, almost 14 years, I believe, in total. And yeah, now moving on with other stuff. And also in my leisure time, I like to skiing, hiking, you know, like the obvious things to do in Switzerland where we have like the mountains. And I'm a big runner, so I do like 3 to 4 runs a week. I already did one today. And yeah, and otherwise I'm also involved in the Drupal open source project. So whenever I have time, I contribute to Drupal, both design and code. I'm also a core maintainer of Drupal. And I'm the maintainer of the design system and the creator of the new admin theme, which might be out with Drupal 10. That's me in a nutshell, I guess.
I'll go next because I'll tell you, I'm Daniel and I live in Berlin. I work for the managed group, but I was mentioning that I also want to move to Zurich. I've been in Berlin for 7 years and I want mountains.
Cool. I will welcome you here when you move.
Hey, I'm Alexis. I'm a designer on the plan team. I don't live anywhere cool. I live in Chicago. I still like it a lot. It's like blizzarding at the
I'll have
moment.
amazing pizzas.
Yeah, we have good pizzas. I just eat pizza every day. No, not really. But yeah, and hot dogs, Blair says. What do I like to do? I swam for like 20 years competitively. So like that's one thing I just started doing again. So that's, you know, just super fun. Otherwise, what else do I like to do? Make my own perfume. I feel like I'm way less active than you, Sasha, but you know, I'm getting there. What about who else is here? Nick?
Hi, yeah, Nick Post, based in Bristol in the UK. With regards to like London, that's like a couple hours by train or car to the southwest. I was actually just in Switzerland for the last few weeks in Grimentz, which is the French side, but I was doing some snowboarding there. It's one of my favorite hobbies. I also enjoy reading. I've been in GitLab for a couple of years. I'm in the Workspace team, and you already witnessed some of the abstract stuff I've been working with. So I'll pass it over to Libor.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so I'm Libor Vance, senior product designer on the ecosystem stage. Been with GitLab for a little over 2 years now. And yeah, that's about it. It's pretty early in the morning for me, so I still need to finish my cup of tea here before I can start thinking a little bit more. But yeah.
Because you're in Hawaii,
Yeah, I'm
right?
in Hawaii. Yeah, I forgot to mention. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wait, what
I'm
time
on
is
the
it there?
way west coast of the US. So yeah, it's actually 6:22 in the morning right now. So
We move these
So good,
down
man.
an hour at least.
yeah, but welcome to the team. Yeah, it's good to have you, Sasha.
Nice. Thanks, guys. And that's all I have. And that's all that's in the agenda. Is there anything else? Any more feedback for Nick? Any other work that we need to throw up on the screen?
I can show something real quick. Let me find it because
Yeah, Nick, I just want to apologize for being a little late, and I haven't actually dove into your issue yet, so that's why I didn't have any feedback yet. But I'll take a closer look at that issue today.
So we have this issue we're working on where we don't have an indication of where a group or your permissions came from. So this was kind of like the first idea that I had. If my computer would stop loading, where you would have more of this little developer bubble. We currently have that visual, but doesn't really say anything. It's not a hover. But now the idea is that we would have it manifest different versions. So I have like direct membership or inherited membership or shared membership, which is the third option. And I differentiated by having little icons. I don't know if that's confusing or if it's problematic or if it's too little variation or if it's really necessary. But I know there's been a request to show where this inheritance or your permissions come from, and that's what I showed earlier, is that we don't have it in every location. So I'm curious if you have a idea or feedback on that. I mentioned it in the co-working channel for feedback also.
I think we're currently updating the agenda. We were having indentation issues, yeah, I saw this morning, Daniel, and I think I commented way earlier on this, but this is actually we're using the pattern, the tag pattern, correct? Is that right? And is there an update to
the
that?
badge?
Yes.
The little pill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is super useful, and it's also really useful for some of the stuff that's happening with namespaces and nested things as well. So definitely welcome, and it'll be useful to update Pajamas docs with potentially some of the use cases maybe. But I like the icons. I especially like the inherited icon. That's I think that one's really clear that it's sort of a nested one. I think the share one to me jumps out as more of like an action, like the share thing. So I think I would prefer like potentially the metaphor of a chain linking together two projects or groups or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my perspective maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't confident with the share icon because from experience, it looks like an action share. But that's, when you look through our component library, that's the share icon. And so I just use it as a reference. I don't know if that's an opportunity for us to offer feedback on the icon itself in terms of the greater use across the environment. But I am also not confident with that.
We have subsets within our icons, like we have status icons, we have trend icons and things as well. So potentially there's an opportunity here, since it's happened so often across GitLab, to convey inheritance or parents or children or linking in some way as well. Maybe there's like a IA icon set that we could create or contribute to.
So what problem is the tooltip solving, Dan?
Yeah, so currently there is no tooltip. So we do have cases of a badge, but it doesn't appear everywhere. And it doesn't also give you any information. It just says developer, whatever your role is. So there is a problem where sometimes people don't know where their permission came from or what their access level is at that environment. So having that visual, since we already have it in some cases, just expand on that feature and say it's actually all these other groups or projects that you have access to. This is the role that you have, and it comes via either inheritance, direct membership, or shared membership. And then the tooltip hover will explain that differentiation. It'll say inherited, shared, or direct. Kind of enhancing the icon if you don't really get the icon, so you don't have to understand what does this icon mean.
So it's telling you where you, like, how you access this versus like what it is. Like, I think what I'm getting at is, are you ever going to tell the user what it means, like how they can contribute? I think that might be what I would expect. Like when I hover over it, it's like, what does developer mean? Does that mean I can post in this, or that I could view issues, or stuff like that? Or like maybe it could be a popover.
Yeah,
to
so
have more
that's something I
information?
didn't think about. So I think I would want to see, like, I guess maybe to expand on that, to think of like, I am able to do or access this at this level, and these are the permissions or things that I can do in this group or project. Is that kind of what you're saying? Because I don't necessarily know what developer might mean.
Yeah, like what is developer versus reporter? Like what does that mean in these two groups? Does that mean I can't view issues here, or like, that I can't access this one, or what does it mean? Right. Yeah.
Would a link, like if you clicked on the bubble, would a link to the docs help? So it'll jump to developer documentation and say, this is what developer does, or maintainer, or whatnot. Because I don't want to take them out of the flow of the work that they're doing. Or perhaps it'd be like I'm curious if there's a way to not impact their flow as much as having to go external from the screen. So like having an overpopulated tooltip with the docs might be problematic, but linking off to the docs might be more helpful.
Does anything happen when they click the badge?
No, right now nothing happens.
I mean,
And
maybe
that's
you can
also
test out.
the idea of currently in this implementation, that nothing would happen. It's just a hover. So if, to expand on your idea, they wanted to click on it, or if they did click on it, it would actually take them to the docs to see what exactly that means.
It could be, I'm thinking maybe you could test out like docs, or like a popover, or a tooltip with like really short, it'd probably be like a popover, something like that. But maybe test it out, I guess, and see what people expect. But I agree, yeah, like you wouldn't necessarily want to be taken somewhere else just to understand what that information is. But it kind of sounds like this should be a global pattern as well. We might not have that, like learning more about this developer badge, right? Yeah.
This is a problem sort of similar a little bit to some of the stuff that we had in value stream analytics, where people didn't really know what the metrics were. So we used a popover and gave like a brief snippet of what it meant, and then also linked to the docs as well. So I'll share an example of that in the agenda, Dan.
Thank you. That's
And then I
awesome
also
that
know
you
that Dan.
identified. Yeah, go ahead.
I also know that Dan has done a nice little bit of work on like a diagram explaining what this problem is. So I think it would be pretty cool for you to show us that diagram, Dan.
Yeah, I had a rough version that I had made some changes on, but then Evan kind of improved it, I guess, for documentation. I'll share that real quickly. Let's see. Somewhere, this one. Yes. No, I can't. So Evan created this really nice mural, mermaid doc that kind of shows this, where you have the hierarchy or the way that membership is assigned or inherited, or how you get access to it. And so this is what they were going to include in the documentation. So that's kind of helpful, I thought. It's not as colorful as the one that I had started with earlier, this one, which was the early version, but yeah, this is what they're going to be using for the documentation. Oh, thanks for sharing that the visual and from your value stream problem. Anyone else have anything to share? So we should call it a day then.
Cool. Where does this video go? Once
I
it's
upload
recorded?
them to the cloud, yeah, or to YouTube, but it's being recorded to the cloud.
Okay, cool. Yeah, give me a ping when that's ready. Cheers.
Yeah, for sure.
Bye.
All right, see y'all later.
Hang out. Bye.
Bye.
See you around.